It's yours.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much, Matt. And I'm super excited to chat with these three folks. We have a guest on our call. Susan McFadden is here, and then of course we have Keith Sealover and Gary Muccio, two very own. A lot of experience with the three folks we have on the call, and we're going to review how to win in competitive markets and hear from different perspectives from these three veteran agents. But I think we're going to get into not just some of the things we've talked about before, like the tools that will help your buyers win the house or the listing they're looking for, but also I think just as importantly in this market, we're going to get into some of the things around just the emotion of it. So the frustration that sometimes we feel, sometimes our clients are feeling, and some strategies around how to handle and manage all of that. So thanks for being on to the three of you, Gary, Keith, and Susan. And first thing I'd love to do is just ask you to introduce yourselves, remind us how long you've been in business, for those of us who know the two of you, and then what you most love about the real estate business. And Gary, let's start with you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I think everybody knows me, Gary Muccio. I've been selling real estate for 27 years. I will say I've seen a lot, and I still love the personal relationships that you can build and the lasting relationships. I mean, I would say when I look at my life, probably 90% of the people in my life right now are through real estate, customers that I'm actually the godfather of some of my clients' kids. I can't emphasize enough, it's all about relationships. So that's the part I enjoy the most. And I think secondly, I enjoy teaching and what we're doing now. Always glad to share anything I can to help somebody be better, mentor somebody to be better. The whole give back thing is kind of enjoyable for me personally.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Knowing you, all of that is so very true. Keith, I think you're on the call. If you could just let us know how long you've been in business and what you love most about the real estate business.
Sure, Dave. Been in the business 43 years. I have effective experience of about 86 years because most of my career I worked 80 hours a week. And since I've been in the business that long, that's why my picture's not on the screen. Only kidding. But at any rate, no, what I still get out of this business is the feel good that you get when you change someone's life for the positive, and they recognize that and appreciate it. And that's what keeps you coming back, certainly as a real estate professional.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for sharing that. And you do have a ton of experience. It's still, with my 18 years of experience, when I have a question that I haven't seen before, a lot of times I'll call Keith or Gary because there's a good chance they'll have the answer. Susan, thanks so much for being on the call. I don't know you personally, but I'd love to hear, maybe just add, what kind of business you do, what market you're from, and just a couple extra things so we can get to know you a little bit better.
Hey guys, I'm Susan McFadden. I am from Berks County. I started the Wyomissing or Reading Market Center 2 years ago. So I'm a mega agent. I do have some buyer agents on my team and an assistant, and somebody who runs like my transaction coordination, which has been huge for me. What I love is the busyness of it. Like, I love to be busy. I love working. I know this sounds crazy, but 14-hour days. I came home from vacation, was in the office at 7 a.m. because I like to have a busy life, and real estate keeps me really, really busy. I have 3 kids, a husband, 2 dogs. We do a ton, and I like how busy this is, and I love the rush of it, helping people. It's great. It's really good.
That's awesome to hear. Living a really full life and managing a lot. That's awesome. So let's get right into it. We have 27 minutes before I want to honor everybody's end of meeting time, and I'll get you about your days. So let's get into the topic at hand. So this is about how to right to win in this competitive market. But first, I just want to hear briefly from each of you, if you would, how this market compares to other competitive markets you've experienced. And I'm going to add something, what it feels like for you or for busy agents in this type of environment, and also for your clients, buyers and sellers. Just give us a taste, for those of us on the call, of the emotion that this type of market brings to each person involved in the transaction. And Gary, we'll just stay in this order if you want to tee it up for you first.
Sure. Sure. I will say it's unlike any other market I've ever experienced in 27 years. People were comparing it to 2006 to 2008, and I don't think it's like that at all. That wasn't nearly as extreme as it is now, and I think it raises a lot of anxiety and tension for the clients. I think Drew hit the nail on the head. I think it was last month. Drew said right before we were ready to reopen again, having that dialogue and conversation with your buyers up front, that has saved a tremendous amount of stress, and personal control of my own life. So I'm not waiting for the phone to ring and can I make a plan to go do something, and I'm going to have to stop and go show a house because it just literally came on the market and we got to see it. So having dialogue with your clients, telling them what to expect. I told them, here's the new rules. This is the ride we're going on. Are you ready or are you not? And I've had several buyers just say they want to wait. They're not willing to get into this. They can't. They're approved for a certain amount. They can't go higher. Sellers, of course, are really anxious. It's been easy to get listings, I think, for people in this market because it's easy to show a seller this is prime time to sell. But conversation with your clients is huge to control their expectations and our expectations. I think that works in any market. I know, Dave, you practice that with your interview scripts that you have when you get a new buyer or seller. That conversation is critical, but especially now, it makes a huge difference so that I don't feel my life is crazy right now at all, because everybody knows the expectations. We go see a house. When we walk away, are we writing or not? And they make an answer right away. Yes, we are. No, we're not. We're going to pass on this one because they know they can't wait. It's not going to be there tomorrow.
Thanks for that, Gary. So I heard that this is the craziest market you've ever experienced, that
Yes.
2007 doesn't compare to it. I heard that it breeds frustration, or it can. And I heard you say that to combat that, it's incredibly important to set new ground rules and make it very clear what those ground rules are in this environment with your clients, which then helps alleviate that pressure in the actual experience.
Exactly.
I want to get back to that because I want to unpack what some of those ground rules are, what some of the things you say are. But I want to transition to Keith. I know, Keith, you're in a different price point than me, and so you may have a little bit of a different experience. I'm not sure, but tell me how this compares to other markets you've experienced in your 40-some years, and then also just what it feels like generally to a busy agent or a buyer and seller.
I would first commend Gary because he's dead on. I think the whole key to the success and lack of problems throughout your transaction and working with your customers and clients is having them completely adept of what they may be facing, whether it's good or whether it's bad, have them prepared for it ahead of time. And I would also say that Gary is right. While I've done this for a very, very long time, I would say this is the strongest sellers market that I have ever seen. I can also say unequivocally that since 2007, our so-called upper end market, which I personally refer to here in the West Shore as 5.25 and up, had been substantially stagnant since that time, but not now. All of a sudden it has changed, and it's changed very, very quickly. We're even getting competitive offers on $1 million plus houses. And that hardly ever happened during that complete duration of recession for those houses. So it's really changed. And why is that happening? It's the pent up demand, it's the low interest rates, and the new hospital coming. We've had quite a few buyers in that are coming to the new Pinnacle, some of which are working in Hershey temporarily, and then they're going to move over to the new facility. So really a great time to sell. Fun being a listing agent because of the competitive offers, and you can really leverage people and certainly get more money for your sellers, and that all feels good.
Yeah.
Another dimension that I oftentimes share, and I may have told you this before, Dave, but many times I'll explain to people there are 3 pieces of the economic transitional pie. And that is, if you're going to sell, how much can you sell for? If you're going to buy, what kind of a value are you getting? And if you're going to finance, where are the interest rates? Well, the reality is right now, interest rates are almost the lowest they've ever been in recorded history. Real estate prices for the sellers are high, And of course, prices for the buyer are higher, but they still have the low interest rate. So there's three pieces of that pie, yet hardly ever get all three. So two of the three are exceedingly strong, and that can help you to explain to your clients, regardless of where they are, what they're likely to see. And it also makes them recognize, if they're buyers, like Gary had alluded to, that while we don't suggest ever rushing into a real estate decision, but if you have made one in this particular market as a buyer to buy a house, you need to move as quickly and aggressively as you possibly can. And we know there's lots of competitive offers. I won't get into that because I might be getting ahead of your agenda, but at any rate, those are some perspectives that may be helpful.
Thanks for that. So I heard a similar thing to Gary. Setting expectations is paramount, and educating them on the front end so they know what to expect. And then I also heard just a tip on the three pieces of the pie: sell for, what are you selling your house for? What kind of value are you getting as a buyer? And then if you're financing, where interest rates. And at this current moment in the market, those three things are looking really, really favorable for our clients. So that's a really good tip. Susan, tell us just in your experience what this market feels like compared to other markets. And you said you like a busy life, 14-hour days. Talk to us about how you or your team members are feeling emotionally, and what some of your buyers' emotions are.
So we have had great experience right now with multiple offers. I think since everything lifted, I don't think we've actually lost one on our team, which is great. We do like to win a lot. I am primarily a listing agent. However, I still have all those people that stay in the area and buy homes. I help them. The number one thing is communication. So, and I'll give some tips when you're ready for it. I have some of my best tips for getting the offer.
So we are about to go into that question. And so if you want to finish out the original question, and then we'll start with you on the next one, because you just said you like to win and your team hasn't lost one. So I, for one, am taking notes and would like to hear what some of those tips are.
So first, I have not, just like the other gentleman, I have not seen in 14 years a market like this. I talked to another agent who's been in 28 years. He has not seen a seller's market like this. So like you said, it's easy to get listings because you go in and say, this is the best time we've ever seen. That's easy. Setting up communications with your buyers, explaining to them what they're going to need to do. One of the things is, if the buyers have a ton of questions and I'm on as a listing agent and Dave brings me, he's about to bring me an offer and he's asking me about the brand of the windows and how old is this and how old is this, you're not my person. We're going to find somebody who's not going to have as many detailed questions. So if your clients have a ton of nitpicky questions, I tell them up front, listen, if we ask all these questions, that's fine. You're never going to win asking all these questions, because do you know what I'm saying? They seem too picky, because the next person isn't going to have that list of questions about what type of shingle is on the roof. That's not for this market. We can find that out later after we get under agreement. My thought is get it under agreement, get it in. Don't just email the other agent the agreement of sale and just send them a text and say, I sent you the offer. That other agent, you need to be in constant communication with. I'm asking them, send them the offer, let them know it's coming. I'm calling them, I'm texting them, I'm saying, I'm their new best friend. Okay.
Yep.
Pretty much, I know what kind of coffee they like. I know everything about them. If I don't, I find out from someone in the office who knows them. And I'll say oh my gosh, I was just talking to Kelly about you. She said you are the best in this neighborhood. You always get listings here, and you're trying to really connect with them. And I'm communicating saying, listen, my cousin wants this house. They will kill me if they don't get it. Okay. They will literally be so upset. And I've heard this from other agents, make that connection and say, where do we need to be? Are we winning now? And if they're like, oh, I can't tell you that. And I'm like, well, it's best for your seller if you tell me, because if I end up getting you more, your seller gets more. So I am very aggressive with it as far as finding out exactly what it takes. Now, of course, if my buyer can't do that, we won't win.
Yep.
Also if a buyer wants an inspection, bring that contractor in on the showing. If you know this is probably their house, bring a contractor in on the showing with you. See if they're willing to waive inspections. A lot of people are doing that right now. So my biggest thing is communication. That agent knows that when they get something with my team, it's going to close. And if something comes up, they'll be communicated with. I just had my sellers pick a lesser priced offer based on how the agent was communicating and which one I knew would get to the table better.
Yep. And
So
that
it
happens.
makes a
That's
difference.
right. It makes
It
a
does.
difference. So what
Yeah.
I'm hearing is, first of all, I would not want to compete with you on writing an offer. Second is what I'm hearing, and I heard it from Gary and Keith. You already know that if there's going to be 8 offers, that the posture of your buyer is going to impact whether or not they get that home. And so you're coaching them way up front on the data of the market as to what this is going to feel like, and you're coaching them to eliminate some of those detailed or overburdensome question. It doesn't mean you might not pick them up in the inspection, or once it's tied up, you might not investigate on their behalf and handle all of
Absolutely.
that. But if they want the house, you're telling them how to win and how to communicate with the seller's agent so that they win, and you're still protecting them on the other side. And then additionally, you're making it personal with that listing agent, right? So if you're bringing
That's
me an
the biggest
offer,
thing.
you're gonna learn about Dave Hook. You're gonna say, I have to get this, and it's gonna feel personal to the listing agent because you're gonna communicate more than all of the other agents, and that and all of those things, it sounds like, will dramatically impact the probability of your client getting that house or not.
I've literally found out who their best friend is as another agent, sent them pictures of us both praying and saying, please let Susan get it. Like, and they laugh, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then we get it. Like
Right.
it helps. The communication is big.
It's key. Yep.
Yep.
And I heard you say it, number one thing, probably both with client and everybody else involved, is communication.
Mhm.
Thank you for that. Gary, we'll just, or Keith, we'll go backwards. You know, the next question was, what are some of the tools? And Susan may have hit on them, and Gary hit on some before, but if we're winning in a competitive market, if you're representing a buyer.
Yeah, well, certainly you have to remember whose team you're on. So if you're representing the buyer and you're in a competitive situation, the first place I go is make the best offer that you can possibly make. And I personally show them what the values of these houses are when they make their offer, so they know where they're going. And of course, something that I use as a classic line, so to speak, or script, is that they don't need to worry about the value of the property because we have an insurance policy for them. The insurance policy is it's going to appraise at or above the sale price. Now, in a competitive offer, many times we're going to increase our deposit. We may waive financing. We may waive a whole house inspection. I mean, we'll do anything conceivable to make it more attractive than the next person. And certainly having the escalation clause is paramount. I had a case this past week. I had told Matt about it. House went on the market Friday night, and this was just less than a $400,000 house, had 20 showings over the weekend, 8 written offers, a couple cash, sold for $20,000 more than the list price.
Wow.
So you've really got to be aggressive and know what market you're in, because that's going to gauge how aggressive you are on that particular house.
Yep.
And of course, you don't want to either get your buyers out of their comfort zone. So certainly you can quantify all of that in your escalation clause.
Yep, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, and what I heard there was just clean offers, helping them understand the value before they make the offer. They understand they're protected by the appraisal, and then obviously higher deposit, cash offers when possible, and all of that.
Yeah, something else, Dave, I'll add to that is, even though we hear mixed reviews on whether people should use them or not use them,
Mhm.
and that is the letters from the buyers giving an impassioned perspective. And I see Gary shaking his head. I know they don't recommend it, but we still get them, and I still see them. And, it works in some cases. I can't say that I've often never done them, but I see that. The other thing that nobody talks about is it's really important that we keep good relations with these other agencies and agents, because you're going to be working with them sometime. And if you build anxiety in that relationship, you are demeaning your odds for getting your contract closed.
That's huge. And I heard that in Susan as well. I mean, she's relating to the agent. I think so often we'll get contract as listing agents that are just emailed to us in a PDF, and let me know what happens is the extent of the presentation. And just imagine if that came in and then, you know, somebody else related to you, the listing agent, made you feel comfortable. All of that stuff seems to have some level of an impact, including your integrity as an agent and how you act when you're communicating with all of these other agents you're going to be working with. So that's really, really big. Keith, thanks for that. Gary, transition into you. Give
Yeah.
us some tools for winning in a competitive market with a buyer when you're writing an offer.
Well, I think what Susan and Keith both said, the communication with the other agent is key. Every time I teach, I tell everybody in my class, all you have in this business is your reputation. That's it. We can all put a sign on the lawn, a lockbox on the door, get them in the multi-list, get them on the internet, but you only have a relationship with another agent, and that is huge. If I see an offer coming from Dave Hook and somebody that I never met, and Dave called me, and I know working with the Dave Hook team is going to get that offer through, I tell my seller, he's $2,000 less, but this is going to closing. I don't know this other agent. She just emailed it to me, never called me, never told me her buyers had interest. Communication's key. Kim just sold her first house last week. Congratulations, Kim Bush, her first sale. And she was competing with a first-time home buyer. And I recommended to her that, you know, we go in with a very strong price. We go in with a high deposit, but also we pay the extra transfer tax. So we paid the 2% transfer tax. So her offer was written at 180, but we gave the seller 181.8 in reality. Now the house only has to appraise at 180, not 181.8. And we got the deal. But I told her, call the agent, because he's not going to pick that up, because an agent's just going to think, he's going to look at that price of 180 and not go down and look that we're paying 2% transfer tax. It nets him an extra 1,800 in his pocket. And now we only have to appraise at 180. And I got her the deal. So high deposits are good. Giving extra money after the inspections are done, I think is really good. Waive whatever inspections you can. You know, radon's an easy fix. You know, if you can waive radon, you can talk to your, just communication with the other agent. I'm going to give you the reason why I am opposed to love letters from buyers. First of all, we all have to remember we're realtors. We have to comply with the code of ethics. An offer has to be based on what's on paper. If you as a listing agent allow your seller to be influenced by a letter, and the losing party finds out that it was sold to a family because they wanted family love in the house, and it wasn't sold to a single person whose offer was better, your seller's liable now for discrimination based on familial status. You're setting your seller up for fair housing violations. Put your money where your mouth is. Put it on paper. Give me your best offer. The seller should evaluate what comes to them in a contract, not a love letter. I just sold a house in Mechanicsburg. We sold it for $7,000 over list price. The first offer came with a love letter. I didn't give it to my seller until after she rejected it. And she said, if I would have seen this, I definitely would have rejected the offer. Do they realize how damning this was for them to do? I said, no, but you rejected their offer on price. I just wanted to show you this. And she said, this would have definitely made me reject their offer because I would be discriminating. I said, exactly. So I have a real live example of that. You have to be very careful with those love letters. You're letting your seller discriminate, and you will be liable for that as well. You would go down in that case as well. So that's my passion against that. It's against our code of ethics, in my belief, and we're setting our sellers up. And especially this whole Keller Williams thing of being in the social equality ambassadorship that Gary Keller's promoting right now. I think that goes clear in the face of what he's trying to do for discrimination and fair housing and equal housing opportunities.
It
So,
perhaps magnifies that. Yeah.
yes,
sure.
Passionate about that. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's
I have
okay.
to say on that subject, a year or two ago, I was seeing it be a big deal when a seller would get the letter. I've had people make the choice because they connected with them in whatever way. If they saw something Penn State in their house, they wrote it in the letter. A year or two ago, I was finding it to be a differentiator. Right now, I'll tell my sellers, by the way, they sent a letter. I had 2 last week say, I don't care about that. Like they didn't even want to see it, which is interesting. However, we're talking about how to get the buyers. And if somebody else puts in a letter, this is why I would say to Michael, who asked the question, this is me personally, I'd say still do it, because if the people do have that heartstrings that are pulled because of whatever connection or whatever they're moving or their military family or whatever it is, and your buyers get that offer because you put it in, or they don't get it because someone else did, I don't think it can hurt. I think the communication needs to be with you and that agent the whole time. We just won. We went against 10 other offers and we won. And it was, I had talked to the agent probably 50 times within 48 hours. And the person overpaid for the house. I was very honest with them. I told them that the house was priced at $299. They paid $335, and they're bringing cash for what, when it doesn't appraise, they're bringing cash. So they're able to do that, and they know they're overpaying for the house and they're okay with it. So
Yeah.
luckily we had buyers that were willing and able to overpay.
Hey, Dave, one other thing too that I wanted to remind everybody in this competing offer situation, and it's not how you structure your offer, but make sure when you're competing that you clearly write in the email or on the contract. We used to deliver stuff by giving somebody a package and we would write on there, you have to make sure you communicate with the listing agent that your offer and the contents within this offer are to remain confidential. A listing agent does not have to keep your offer confidential. He can say, I got 250 from Susan. You know, John, can you give me 260? Dave, can you give me 270? He can hold an auction. That is legal. No agent does that because they're fearful of their reputation, but our code of ethics allows us to do that. Offers are not confidential. It's in the buyer's agency contract that the offer is not confidential unless there's a written agreement between the buyer and seller that it is. So just putting that in your email when you're competing should stop that listing agent from holding an auction with your offer. That's very important to make sure you note that your offer and the terms contained within are confidential and shouldn't be shared with competing offers.
Yeah, so it certainly would make it less likely that they would do that for sure. And that's a good point. We have 5 minutes left. If anybody, thanks Mike DeReamer for the question. If anybody else has any questions as we've talked through this, put them in the chat and I'll try to address it in the next 5 minutes. I do want to circle back to really one of the first comments, which is we went back, we talked about how to win and, you know, relate to the other agent. You know, how you communicate to the agent matters, the level at which you communicate, your professionalism, your reputation, then the structure of the offer, how clean it is. And then all of that, you know, comes back to your original communication with your buyer and setting expectations. I know that when we're running around with buyers and they're missing out on opportunities because they're offering too low or they weren't prepared, it is frustrating, and their level of satisfaction with the agent goes down, and your mental health goes down as an agent. It can be totally debilitating when that happens over and over again. Can you each share briefly, and Gary, I'll start back with you just in a minute or so, what are some of the things that you think are most important to say to your buyer as they're starting the experience in this market to set their expectations well? And do you use data or any reports to share with them? How do you do that?
Well, I do show them days on the market, and then the sale to list price ratio is very powerful in the neighborhoods they're looking at, to show them that sale to list price ratio in many cases of the homes I show them have sold over 100%, so that they're not just relying on my words. And then I just tell them it's okay. It's just that you're making a huge purchase decision and you have to make that quickly. And if you're comfortable doing that to take advantage of interest rates, you know you're going to stay there, you know your job is stable. So I go over all the things that I think they need to make them feel comfortable. And then I say, now you take this criteria and apply it to your, because I can't address your emotion. So only you know your emotion.
Right.
But these are the facts. So I give you the rules of the game. You decide if you want to play. I'm willing to play with you. But if you're not willing to play, because you're wasting my time and I'm wasting your time. And they get it. They seem to get it. And then they have some questions and I answer them. For sellers, they're like, when can I list? You know?
Yeah.
So that's a different conversation. But for buyers, I do use a little bit of market data just to show them, especially in the areas that are really hot, why they can't sleep on it anymore. It's really tough with first-time home buyers. I would say 60% of the first-time home buyers that I've had are just out of the game. They're not in the game.
Keith, anything to add about setting expectations with your clients?
Not necessarily on expectations, other than the fact, Dave, that I weigh heavily on the Terra Datum reports. And I have Claire print those off for me specifically and regionally, right where someone is focusing. So I can give them very accurate data, show them everything that's going on. I keep them from month to month.
Yeah.
So I can show them how the market is transitioning. I also refer to that sometimes as the futures, because you can kind of see where the market is heading.
Yep.
So that helps to be impactful. It's not a real estate agent's opinion at that point. You're just showing them factual data.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for that. And Susan, anything about the front end of that first, conversation with the
do.
buyer?
I think part of setting them up to succeed, to win, is making sure they're pre-approved with someone that has a great reputation of getting things closed. I mean, we all have lenders that when you get an offer from that lender, you roll your eyes and go, oh my God, this will probably never happen. And if you're out, if Gary's out, somebody's laughing, right? If Gary's out with his clients on a Saturday night at 6 o'clock and see a house and they call him at 8 saying they want to rate it up, is that lender at Wells Fargo going to be answering their phone, or Quicken Loans? No chance.
Yeah.
So that's really important in the control. I know that the people that I use, if I call them at 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday, they're getting back to me right away, most likely,
Yep.
So you got to set them up to succeed. And I tell them, I'm going to give you all the tools to win. Whether we win or not, a lot of it is up to them. If they want to get that, then they do. If not, and I say, listen, there's a lot of agents in my office who are writing multiple offers till we find the house. I do believe that if for some reason this falls apart, there's a reason that a better house is out there for you. And I believe that.
Yeah, really good. All right. Well, that brings us to 1:30. I have a whole page of notes, and I'm going to go back through with a highlighter, because even after doing this, as long as I have, there's a lot in here that I know we can pick up that I got from each one of you to help represent our clients better. And, that's what it's all about at the end of the day. So thank you, each one of you. Susan, thanks for coming on as a guest
It was
today.
great to see you guys. If you are ever closing in Wyomissing and you want to use our office, feel free. We'll get you in, get you guys anything you need for your clients. And if you have anybody buying or selling out here and you need help, give me a call.
Thank you so much. And
Thanks,
Gary,
Susan.
thanks for being on. And
Thank you,
Keith,
guys.
thanks for your wisdom as always. Everyone, if you have any questions about this, now that it's after 1:30, feel free to email them directly to me or the leadership, and we'll get back to you guys. And can't wait to see you guys at the next office meeting. Thanks.